I am here to call upon one of your daughters, if I may.
My daughter Francesca?
If you have watched Bridgerton Season 3 Part 1 and didn't think Francesca and John's love story was the cutest and the most unique ever, then I don't know what to tell ya. Well, actually I do. Anyone who has been saying their love story was boring and awkward, no, it was not. It was unconventional, especially for Bridgerton standards, but it was lovely, and I would go so far as to say that Francesca and John's storyline was better than Colin and Penelope's. I know, I started off a little controversial, but hear me out. I'm sure there will be some things you guys will agree with. If you disagree, let me know in the comments why. Here's why Francesca and John have the best Bridgerton love story. Comfort in silence versus excitement in conversation. The key word in Francesca and John's story is comfort, which is something they immediately find when they meet for the first time. No conversation, no going back and forth needed. These two could feel comfortable in each other's presence as soon as they saw each other. They found comfort in each other's silences, which is such a rare thing to find in relationships. As someone who has dated for a while and finally found the love of her life, let me tell you, if you can sit silently beside someone and just enjoy the quiet together without getting bored or feeling overwhelmed, that person is the right person for you. I speak from a first-hand experience. Trust me. The fact that Francesca and John managed to achieve that right after their first encounter and continued doing that in their second meeting just showed their immediate trust and compassion for each other. But my main point is how this kind of silence-based first love story is in such a contrast compared to the other love stories we have seen so far on the show. Look at Daphne and Simon, for example. They bantered a lot. They got snippy with each other. That continuous back and forth was thrilling for them. They found excitement in conversation compared to Francesca and John, who found comfort in silence. I'm not saying one is better than the other, I'm just saying that I appreciate the difference. Because think about it, Anthony looked for the same thing as Daphne. He and Kate vexed each other through their conversations to the point where their bantering ended up being one of the best things about season 2. In a way, Colin also chose someone like Penelope, someone who he can have long and engaging conversations with. I mean, we haven't watched her main love story yet, but even Eloise found someone like Theo who could intellectually challenge her, and she liked that excitement very much. Now, compare all these Bridgerton siblings with Francesca, the most silent of them all. She was so lucky to find John, who was also as reserved as Francesca was, and they both felt comfortable enough to be silent in each other's presence. To me, Francesca's different character compared to her siblings was executed perfectly with this storyline and her interactions with John. Words versus actions. Another reason I think this storyline is the best is related to John's final act in episode 4. When Francesca encountered him on the street and they talked about the street music being too fickle, John left her without saying anything. Now, I have to admit this was funny as hell and a little awkward too, but his later gift to Francesca, with the notes rearranged to her liking, shows exactly why actions mean more than words, and how this storyline starkly contrasts other love stories we've seen so far. First of all, John didn't need to gloat. He didn't make a big scene of the gift. He just quietly gave it to Francesca, and that was it, which showed his humble nature. Second of all, on the show, we have been used to these big words and major confession scenes that were wonderful. Like, I burn for you, you're the bane of my existence, and then Colin with a speech about preferring sleep because that's where he might find Penelope. These are all great, but for the first time, we're seeing the importance being put on an action rather than a fancy or ornamented speech. His gesture for Francesca meant more than a few words would tell her. You could see this from her face, to be honest. She was the happiest we ever saw her. Even her mother saw the happiness on her face and became happy for her. I mean, as that famous song says, words are very unnecessary. I would personally prefer a good, thoughtful gesture over lovely words. Also, both of these characters are not good at communicating with their words and understanding their feelings, so actions end up being more important for them, which is why I also loved their dynamic. Unconventional versus traditional. Francesca and John's storyline was also unique because of how unconventional it was. Did you see any other couple on the show who just sit silently side by side as others are looking at them? I mean, besides feeling comfortable enough to do that with someone you just met, it also meant that they did not care what others thought while they did that. The others' opinions did not matter as soon as they sat in silence together. It was their way of going beyond society's conventions and expectations. Moreover, their relationship stands out compared to the traditional stories we have seen on the show so far. Their simplicity and subtlety compared to the all-colorful and dynamic world of Bridgerton made them stand out and be one of the best parts of the season. Francesca and John versus Colin and Penelope. Now, of course, I loved Colin and Penelope's story, but I didn't think that we'd seen enough of the two. Like I said in my previous video, this season had too many storylines and some of them were unnecessary. If the Mondrich storyline and Lady Danbury's brother were taken out of this season, there would be more space for Pauline's love story. They definitely needed more scenes. I hope we can get that in part 2. Anyway, I think a few scenes that Francesca and John had were enough to overshadow most of the other storylines on the show, perhaps even Colin and Penelope's in the first 3 episodes of season 3. I only feel like episode 4 was the best for the Pauline fans, and mostly because of that damn carriage scene. Other than that, I hate to say it, but I enjoyed Francesca's storyline with John a little more for the reasons I counted above. But still, I do know that part 2 can change this if it has more Pauline scenes. Security is romantic. I want to talk about one thing before ending the video. Something Portia said to Penelope has stuck in my mind since, and I cannot stop thinking about it. She said, "Do you know what's romantic? Security." I know Portia meant financial security here, but the word can be interpreted in so many ways, especially when we think about Francesca and John's relationship. They felt secure the moment they met, and that feeling was locked as soon as John gave Francesca that thoughtful gift. That was romantic as hell, even though it's a different and unexpected type of romantic. There's so much that can be said about Portia's sentence, but I just wanted to share my interpretation of it for Francesca and John's storyline. If you want to watch my analysis of the carriage scene from episode 4, go check out this video. I am planning on breaking down the part 2 teaser that has been going around. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss that out. See you soon.